Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Stryve Golf Podcast. Devin here with me as always, co-host Sean. How are you, my man?
Good, man. You treated me to a country club visit this past weekend and had ourselves a good golf tournament to watch. So it's been a good couple of days.
Say all around a pretty good weekend. And a special treat. We got our boy, Mr. Dallas Dane, coming in from Tulsa. But where are you now? You were in LA, you were back in Nebraska, you're in Salt Lake. Where the heck are you, Dane?
Yeah, man. And I'm currently sitting in baggage claim at Salt Lake City. The weather was not cooperative this morning in Oklahoma trying to get out. So a lot of people probably frustrated trying to get out of Tulsa today.
And we're talking to one of them, but hopefully the takeaways from the golf course and being there at the championship what made it all worth it. So thanks for being here, man. You're going to provide a lot of good insight being there, feet on the ground there. So it's so I mean, let's just dive right in. I think this episode is going to be pretty heavy just on the PGA Championship, kind of recapping it. We have some really fun things coming up for our next episode, so we're going to save some of that and just really focus on the major, man, and kind of recapping that. And then obviously, like I said, it's awesome to have Daniel to provide some more context and color to the, just the whole experience. Because to be honest, we were talking before, like first couple of days were a little bit of a snooze. I did watch kind of the featured group of obviously like everybody else with Rory, Spieth, and Tiger, which was awesome. But then other than that, some of the stuff I saw on Friday, it was kind of like, wasn't, I don't know. It wasn't what I anticipated, at least initially. So I'm pumped to kind of dive in on that. So Sean, as always, take us there, man. You was, the recap specialist and you got the the eyes. So break us down, Sean.
Yeah, for sure.
And the baggage, telling you your flight's delayed again, Dane. Get comfortable.
Like, we can't stress this enough. Dane is literally in an airport flying. He's been traveling all day from the middle of nowhere.
Gotta love those TSA,
awesome.
the TSA messages. So,
but yeah, I mean, as for the tournament, I really loved it. It had everything, really, like from a weather perspective, right? It was hot the first 2 days, wind was blowing one direction.
Oh.
Then they get all sorts of rain, temperature dropped like 50 degrees, wind shifted direction. So the course played completely different the next couple of days. We had some big names in contention after 2 days, thinking we were going to have a stacked leaderboard over the weekend, and then got into Saturday and some of these guys fell away and then looked like they were going to be out of it. And then JT comes out of nowhere and finds himself back into contention, but then you think he's going to come up short. And then we have a double bogey on the last hole from the leader to take him out of it. And then Zalatoris, with the putter of all clubs, makes a clutch putt on 18 to get into a playoff. And I mean, as far as playoffs go, I mean, usually you kind of have one guy that plays well and another guy that doesn't play as well and kind of loses it. But like, I thought the golf in the playoff was really good, considering we didn't see some of the strongest golf kind of in the regulation, like to end the tournament. But I mean, all in all, it was a sweet course. There's so many nuances of it. I loved how some of the holes crossed over each other, right? And I'm really curious to see how it looked in person. Thank goodness we got Dane here to walk us through that. But I mean, all in all, I thought it was pretty fun. Obviously disappointed that Rory wasn't able to kind of hold off his or continue on with his hot start, and obviously bummed that Tiger sort of fell away over the weekend. But I mean, all in all, for a major that definitely plays fourth fiddle typically, like, I thought this was as strong of a PGA Championship as we've had in the last 5-10 years for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Like the playoff was so good. I was sitting there watching with my wife when she saw that it was going to go to a playoff. Like, she loves JT, so that helped, but she's also like, oh, well, let's get comfortable because we're going to be here for 5-7 holes of just a bunch of pars. And I'm like, well, luckily they wised up and they have a pretty good, playoff route. And the 3 holes they picked were, just absolutely perfect, going to 13, that par 5, and then drivable par 4 and then the really tough 18. So yeah, I thought that was definitely the highlight in the last 2 hours. Was super engaging, and I was just eating it up. So that was also, Dane, take us there, man, like being there in person. And you were there for, you said Friday, Saturday, Sunday, right? So you got a, or just half day Friday, but you got kind of the full gamut there of the, you know, the weather, the wind direction. And yeah, like Sean said, I loved, like, it was just so interesting to see dudes teeing off right over the, you know, a green they just finished on, or, you know, having to communicate all of that. So like, did that make it really good from a, like, being a spectator perspective, be able to catch a lot of guys, see greens, see tee shots? Like, take us there, man. How was it?
Yeah, so that was actually one of the maybe like the challenges. You know, some of the things I've heard from the tournament is like it didn't seem like there was as big of buzz. And I think part of that's because like some of those holes that cross over, like they used up every inch of empty space on some of those holes to put tee boxes in that aren't normally there, right? The Bryson-ifying of Southern Hills was in full effect for him to withdraw, but that's another story. But so there were some areas of the course where it was really difficult to get people close, just because, you know, you have like down by 5 green, 6 tee, 7 tee, 3 tee, 2 green, like all of that, you couldn't have spectators anywhere down there. So there was like a whole quarter of the course where you couldn't actually get spectators, but that just meant that the places where you could, they really packed in. And so that was pretty cool to be in some of those areas, especially like down the stretch on Sunday. I was posted up between 13 and 17 and 18, which was like where all the action was happening on Sunday. So yeah, it was pretty phenomenal. There was terrible cell service out there, so that was a struggle. You know, like when the playoff was happening, everybody on the course was trying to figure out where the playoff was going to be. And when one person finally got their Google to go through of it was going to be 13, 17, 18, it was just a mad dash, like people sprinting from the grandstands to get out to 13 and 17. But
That's
you know,
awesome.
like overall, it was fantastic. I don't know how well Southern Hills showed on TV, but in person, it was scary. It looks, some of those holes, man, they are visually intimidating.
What were your favorite holes to walk and see?
Yeah, so I think, yeah, 13 and 17, it was really nice because those two are parallel to each other, so you could easily bounce back and forth. Like the green on 17 was near the landing area on Friday or Saturday and Sunday for the tee shots. So you could sit there and watch guys hit 280-yard shots into 17 and then turn around and watch their drives come in and watch them hit their second shots into 13, because on Sunday, pretty much everybody seemed to be going for it on 13, which hadn't been the case all week. So those were probably the two best, but there's a lot of good holes out there. Number 8 looked like a medium length par 4 from the tee box, but it was a par 3. A lot of big numbers there. Number 6 was a pretty challenging par 3, especially on Saturday and Sunday when the wind flipped and was coming out of the north. I mean, I could probably just go through and list every hole. Like, I love Southern Hills. So it was really cool to see those guys play it. And I mean, there's a lot of good holes out there. So I have no idea how it looked on TV, but I have to defer to you guys on that one.
Yeah.
I think a couple of my favorites. So I loved, I would not make anything less than triple on this hole, but I thought 7 was cool. Kind of like 7 at Augusta National, just on steroids, right? Longer, more trouble, more uphill, I think too. So that was cool. I loved on Thursday into 12, right? Like 12 played really cool on Thursday. So watching Tiger, Rory, and Spieth play 12 on Thursday was fun to see. Rory and Spieth hit driver to cut the corner, and Tiger hit his stinger 2-iron off the tee and had a longer approach in. And then just seeing the different ways to play that hole. And then that was the day where 13's tee box was literally like as far back as it can. So you're hitting up over a 12 green. So having all the people around Tiger's group and then watching them navigate that, I thought that was pretty cool. And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, 18, I loved 18. I loved that the shape of the fairway, the 2-tiered fairway. And it was such a To me, it was like a great risk reward shot. Like if you hit a good shot, you were rewarded with a more manageable second shot into the green, right? Um, but if you blocked it at all or tried to take on too much and just you landed in that wrong spot and it brought that creek into play.
By ball.
Like I absolutely love that. And then there was enough tree overhangage on the right too, where you still had to hit that cut around the corner to get to the green. And I love too, like that green where it was fair, but it was still pretty hard, right? Like it wasn't super well protected by like bunkers or anything. So like it gave you a chance to hit a shot um, to make something happen. And it was fair though. Like if you hit a good shot, you were rewarded. But if you bailed out left, it was a tough up and down. So I thought as far as closing holes go, I thought that hole was as good as it gets, for just in my opinion.
Yeah. So a couple questions from that. One, like how well did the topography show up on the broadcast? Because some of those ones you were talking through, like number 7, number 12, like those fairways, there's not a lot of level ground in them. And then especially on 12, like it's a big right to left dog leg. So the fairway slopes right to left, but then the green actually slopes left to right and feeds down into a creek. So it's like this really,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just uncomfortable shot in there. And granted, those guys were all hitting their drives 350 and flipping wedges and 9-irons in there. So they were making it look easy, but it's really not. So how did that show up on the TV, and 18 and 7 as well?
So 18 was the one where you really, it's hard not to see it on the TV because it's so like, I mean, it's literally like a step right in that fairway. So it's pretty easy to see the drop off. But other than that, it's hard to tell on TV to get some of the slope, especially in the fairway. Like you could tell on 12, like as tee shots would land, as they would kind of roll out, right? You could kind of fault, but you miss that on the green a little bit. That one's harder to see. And that was kind of something that I'm always, because I've never been to like a PGA tour event, right? I've only ever watched it on TV. And sometimes as it comes across on TV, whether it's like the overhead shots or the way they have cameras set up, it's like, I don't know, sometimes it almost doesn't look like a golf course to me, right? Where it's like when you're on a golf course and you're on the ground level, like it's easier to see shots and see like what the ball's doing. So I've always wondered how that's like in person, right? But you've both of you now have been to majors and you've been to professional tournaments. So it's like, is it noticeably different, like being there in person? Like, does it just come across differently? Like, does it feel more like a golf course? Does that make sense? Like, because when I'm watching on TV, it's like, I don't know, it feels and looks just different from like when I play golf or whatever, obviously, like because of the camera angles and all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Just from the few that I've been to, and I've been to, obviously, so I've been to Pebble Beach at the US Open, then I went to the CJ Cup down in Vegas, and those are, I don't know, those are two kind of extremes. Like obviously Pebbles shows amazing on TV because it's Pebble Beach and you have the ocean and all of that. But like the biggest thing was biggest difference that just looked like on like number 6 at Pebble, the famous par 5 that's like up that 2-tier. Like from TV, that just looks like the weirdest hole. Like it just looks like how is that a golf hole and how are guys hitting the mid irons to there? Like being there, you could kind of like it just provides just more context, and it does look more like, okay, I could play this. It wouldn't be as pretty or as good or as precise as these guys play it, but it is playable. So like I have noticed that too, and that was pretty obvious. And then in addition to the actual golf course is the trajectory of the golf ball, like the type of shots that they hit is so cool to see that in person rather than just because it's just so hard, right? Like I mean, it's amazing that the camera guy can even, as soon as they hit, can catch the ball and you watch it fly through the air, but there's no context. Or I mean, sometimes you can tell if they really hooked it or if they really, were trying to play this big slice or something. But being able to just see like a little bit more stock yardages, like I said, I brought it up on one of the podcasts, like watching Carlos Ortiz hit this like sick flighted wedge in Vegas that I saw, and I was like standing just like to the right and like behind him, and being able to see that is so cool. Like it is like the coolest thing. So that's why it's like being there in person is really just is so much different. And Yeah, Dan, I'm sure Southern Hills was similar to that, because I think there was times, like, to answer your question, how I felt it was like on 12, for example, like on Thursday. That's as soon as I started to, that's when I turned it on, was Thursday morning, and Tiger and Rory and Spieth had just hit their tee shots on 12. And like, it was, you were kind of able to tell like all the nuances like within the actual holes, just because I think Tiger was so much further back than Rory and Spieth. So you kind of had some idea there, because they're like, Rory was standing way down and way left, like completely out of the way, but he was just a lot further up there. So like that kind of gave context. But other than that, there are some things that are pretty obvious, but the course looked lush, but I think there's some things that we missed watching on TV as opposed to being there.
Yeah, that's good that it looked lush, because it's a Bermuda grass, and they obviously had it shaved way down and pretty much everywhere. And as the days goes on and more spectators are out there trampling everything down, it starts to look a little beat down.
Yeah, the walking paths were completely brown. It was like, now it looks like Bloomington in January. Like, it looked awful. It was just because, yeah, they just absolutely trampled it. But other than
the
that,
crazy part is I think they underestimated how far those guys would hit it on number 9, the crosswalk.
guys,
Like,
yeah, I saw
so
that.
many guys were in or past the crosswalk there. That
You think they would know by now, but the lines that Rory was taking, especially Thursday, because I watched the whole thing, was just gross. Like,
Yeah, that's what I texted you first thing Thursday morning. I was like, dude, you got to see the tee shot Rory just hit on 12. I'm pretty sure that was not in the architect's original design, or even in the redesign. That was not the line.
that was insane.
Well,
that line.
Speaking of Rory, quick question: you both being diehard Rory fans, like, a little knock on him for not speaking to the media after, man. He just signed his card in peace. That's what do you have to say for yourselves?
I don't know. It was a frustrating week, because like there was a point on Thursday where the cameraman was obviously following Tiger. They were walking up a hill. I can't remember which tee box they were going to, but they were climbing up a steep hill, and Rory was kind of in the middle of his run, and Tiger was struggling kind of, and the cameraman was like focused in on him, but just in the background you see Rory just in his full strut, right, looking like a gazelle, just like climbing up the hill when he's on fire. And at that moment it's like, he's going to win this thing by 12 shots, right? Because he was like walking on air at that, like he could vibing. Do no wrong.
Yeah.
So to see him come out Friday with the easier, I mean, granted his front nine was still played in the tough conditions, but to not be able to get anything going Friday afternoon was tough. And then even Saturday, you think like, okay, man, if he'd only shot even or one over, like he obviously hindsight, right, where you can't expect the leader to come all the way back down to 5 under, but I don't know. It's like we've had with quite a few majors with him, right, where you look back at what the winning score ended up being, and you see where Rory finished, and it's like, okay, if he could have 9 to 15 holes back, right? But I do, and this kind of leads me into the weather discussion that I wanted to get your thoughts on, Dane, but because everyone was saying how the draw, like the guys that teed off Thursday morning and then got to play Friday afternoon, they got the much easier weather, right? Because Thursday afternoon and Friday morning, the wind was howling and it made the course play tougher. But I wanted, and Dane, this will be good to get your input, but I want to push back a little bit on people like, oh, Rory, those guys had the easier draw because they got to go out Friday afternoon. Like, it was still tough, their first 9. And I just think that's got to be a pretty tough adjustment to play your first 7, 8, 9 holes in howling wind, and then to all of a sudden it just lays down. That's got to be kind of hard to like switch your mindset, right? Because you're starting off knowing you're playing in the wind, like you have to play pretty defensive, but then to have the conditions just like completely go calm all of a sudden, and then I don't know, to me that seems like it'd be kind of hard to flip your mindset and like try to take advantage. But I mean, I could just be
speaking like a true
from my guy, but I don't know. I think I think that would be weird because I don't have too much experience of playing where it just calms down. Like, Dane, did it really, like, because it was howling Friday morning, did the wind really like it? Because it seemed like it just really calmed down and got like pretty like there wasn't a whole lot of movement in as far as wind goes toward the end of the day.
Yeah, so I made it out there Friday for like the afternoon wave to go off. So I didn't catch the like the bad part of the morning on Friday, but even from when I got out there and when those guys teed off, and I followed Rory the entire time on Friday for his whole round on Saturday and most of it on Sunday. But yeah, so one of the crazy things is, I don't know if you guys saw, but they didn't mow the greens on Friday because they expected the winds to be so crazy in the morning, and they were pretty windy. Like when I got in, the plane it was bumpy, so it was windy, and and then it did certainly settle down. And I kind of wonder if like that had an effect on those guys, that once they finally started playing in the conditions Friday where everything had really laid down, but they hadn't mowed the greens since Thursday morning. Like, I don't know if that was maybe throwing guys off. And yeah, I don't know. But
I mean, it definitely, it had an impact on Spieth. Like Spieth never got comfortable on those greens.
No.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah. I'm sure guys were complaining about it. What don't they complain about?
Yeah. How what was the difference in air temperature Friday afternoon to Saturday?
It was insane. Like I'm honestly surprised that Tiger finished his round on Saturday. It was really cold out there. And you guys are both familiar with, living in Dallas for a couple of years, the misting weather, where the humidity is so high, there's just like moisture just hanging in the air. And then when it gets cold like that, it chills you to your bones. And the ground is wet and damp. Like Saturday was, and I hope it showed this way on TV, but Saturday was so tough. And that wind coming out of the north, the wind was freezing, the humidity, just everything that came together. It was brutal.
Yeah, you don't see that a whole lot where you get a 180 in weather. And the perfect illustration was off a hole 1, right? Where Thursday and Friday, it's like I think actual yardage is like 480 yards, 490 yards downhill, par 4, right? And on Thursday and Friday, guys had 100 yards in, most of them, right?
Bombing drive.
Because it was playing downwind, but then the wind shifted. And I think Justin Thomas, from his Friday round to his Saturday round, I think there was 100-yard difference in length of his second shot that he had coming in. Like that was wild to me. And so the course played completely different over the weekend. So that, I don't know, part of me thought that was kind of fun though, right? Because it's like another tournament. It's like, who can make the best adjustments, right? And really battle the conditions. And honestly, like JT's 67 in the hardest conditions, like wind-wise Friday morning, like I thought that was probably as impressive of a round as we saw all week, even more so than his Sunday round. So I don't know, he could have mailed it in probably like some guys did when they found out what kind of draw they were facing. But the fact that he pushed through like he did, I would say that he was a pretty deserving winner, right? Like obviously Mito he faded down the stretch, but at the end of the day, like a lot of those guys on the leaderboard faded down the stretch. It just kind of shows how hard it is to win a major, especially to make it your first win, right? So it's like at the end of the day, I still would side on JT kind of going out and taking it, as opposed to guys, giving it away too much. I mean, granted, like doubling the last hole for Mito, that is pretty tough. And he played pretty well on Sunday. He made a lot of putts, but at the same time, he also had found himself having to make a lot of putts, right? Because he was a little shaky. But I don't know, what did you feel like, Dallas, being there? Like how did you feel? Were you guys just bleeding shots, like not playing well, or do you think the course was really playing just that tough?
I think it was a combination. Like you still had the wind out of the north on Sunday, and it hadn't warmed up dramatically from Saturday. Most guys were still out there in like their sweaters, and the sun was out for a little bit, but like it's still, the conditions were similar to Saturday. So I think the course was playing pretty tough still. And then obviously just the added pressure of Sunday at a major, especially once the leaderboard became kind of grouped there. I feel like that's when everybody really started to like, there was oil leaking everywhere. And there started to be a buzz of, I think it really started like when Rory started to make his run Sunday morning, you knew exactly where he was on the golf course. Like it was electric when he started to go crazy. And everybody's out there like, oh, typical Rory, but like he might actually do it. So everybody was buying in, even though they knew the history. And I think we all probably knew the outcome. But yeah, I think it was just a combination of the weather staying tough and the pressure setting in. And then once it bunched up, like it was anybody's game.
Was the crowd kind of behind a specific player? Obviously with Rory, then once you found out, okay, like obviously he's not going to do it, were people kind of rooting for Mito kind of for a first time, rookie to win it? Or was it the JT favorites? Like, did you kind of sense that amongst the crowd?
Well, I have to start with the hands down favorite of the Oklahoma crowd was John Daly. Like, I can't tell you how many people I heard talking about John Daly.
Hey, he's 2 under through 5 holes. He's leading the major. Like,
no, this is on like Saturday and Sunday. People were like, oh yeah, like we're bummed Tiger didn't make it, but man, John Daly didn't make it. It was, it was just
down the stretch.
It was so on brand for Oklahoma.
The 21 cigarettes and 15 Diet Cokes didn't give him the sustenance to close it out, unfortunately.
Unbelievable. And the golf cart, people were just eating that up. But no, the crowd favorite, like I said, once Rory started to make his run on Sunday, like everybody was behind him. Everybody was flocking to where he was on the course. And then once it got down to the end and JT started making his run, he was by far the favorite. Even when it got into the playoff, like people were pretty behind Will all day. And then when it got to the playoff, it's like they forgot who he was and everybody was just locked in on JT.
Could you see the putting stroke from that far away on the 3-footers? Was it obvious? Because it was very obvious on TV. It's like annoying because now like it gets on Zyre Golf, it gets on all these like big accounts. Now everyone's talking about it. Like guys I played with today who don't watch a lot of golf, they're like, did you see Will Zalatoris' putting stroke? And he's like, yes, but was that like a vibe at all through that? Like people talking about that or no?
So you couldn't really see it that well from the grounds, but I will say people, generally when those guys hit it up there to 2 feet, 3 feet, and they're just going to tap it in, everybody starts to move over to the next hole, but not with Will, man. They're sticking around to see that thing hit the bottom of the cup.
Dude, some of those like were so off the toe too that I just it's jarring, but oh man, I don't know. That doesn't really surprise me that people are getting behind JT. And it's funny because speaking of JT, is our last podcast episode, and no one will know this besides Sean because I edited it out because it was so awkwardly like towards the end. But JT was just kind of in my mind a lot, like this last, like the week leading up. And I had a couple of questions for Sean specifically on JT, and I was like so anxious that like we literally were like wrapping it up, like it was over, like the pod was over, and I was like, oh yeah, 1 second, Sean, what are your thoughts on JT? And it was just so like out of left field. It seemed like I literally just edited it out. It was so dumb, but it's just interesting because like I don't know, Sean, from that conversation, I was just like, what is up with like? There's something with JT here. Like, what is your take on him? And sure enough, now he comes in and closes it out. But I don't know. Is there anything about his? Go ahead, Sean.
I was going to say what we talked about though in the edited out part, where it's like there's always a round. It's like the Rory effect, right? Where there's a round that takes him out of it. Like we thought that's what happened Saturday, right?
Right.
Everyone pretty much had written him off, and even when he made the turn on Sunday, right, he wasn't really within shouting distance yet. Yeah. And even like. I was pretty convinced. I was pretty convinced when he missed his birdie putt on 18 to finish at 5 under. I was like, I think he's going to come up one short.
Yeah.
So
did they show the shank on TV?
I
didn't see it on the coverage, but I
missed on
like
the coverage.
After, but
yeah.
No.
that was an incredible bogey. Maybe, by the way.
That bogey may be the greatest bogey all week. Maybe.
Yeah.
It might be the greatest bogey of the season.
Yeah, that one, or we talked about it was.
Kramer Hickok.
Yeah, Hickok
from the bunker.
Right, and it hits him. But
I happened to be standing right there for that.
Oh no way!
Do you?
That was incredible. But that was a good hole out bogey there. But yeah, JT to make a shank and still go home with over $2 million. That's pretty good.
I mean,
Not only to make a shank, but like
I shanked one on Saturday, and I got nothing but humiliation from everyone. So it's
I screwed you off the property. Not here, sir. Dude, what
Sorry,
were
go
you
ahead,
saying?
Dallas.
Sorry.
no, I was just gonna say like I mentally like how he got that out of his mind to then turn around and play 7 and 8, which are two of the harder holes on the course. Like props.
Yeah.
Those linger with me for years. So
I have to talk. My one beef that I had with the tournament is, you mentioned it earlier though, but like I felt the par threes were more like par fours. They were so freaking long. Number 6 on Saturday, it had to have been playing 250. Like Tiger absolutely roped a 4-iron.
Right in the
And he
water.
thought it was going to hit the green, and it came up 45 yards short. And just that was one of my favorite moments when they kind of panned him after he hit the shot. He's like, wait, that's in the effing water?
That's in the
How
effing
effing
water?
far is it playing? It's like,
it
when you got
was
pros saying that, that's got to be, I don't know if I could have hit driver there.
6 was insane. Tony Finau missed like short and left of the water. Like he didn't even get it there.
Yeah, I saw that.
Crazy.
I saw.
And then Rory, of course, like just, that's when it seemed like he was fully ejecting, hit one
Yeah.
40 yards short into the water. It was the par threes, they're extremely difficult. There's none of them that are really like fun holes. So it'd be nice to have a mix of like a couple really difficult ones and a couple. I think we talked about this on the Masters recap that we did. Like, a couple of the par threes at Augusta, or especially 16, right? And they put that funnel pin on Sunday. Like it just makes it interesting. It gives guys a chance. But every time they got to a par three, even the short one, number 11, like there were a lot of big numbers there this week. So yeah, the par threes aren't the best out there.
And I had a bet going for Morikawa to make under 3.5 birdies, and I turn on, and the first thing I see is that I can't remember what hole it is, the par 3 on the back 9, but he hits like, I don't even know what it was, like a 7 or 5 wood or something to like 2 feet. Of course, and he makes the putt, ruins my bet. I'm like, yeah, idiot, stupid Morikawa. So just another, hate those long par 3s.
Yesterday morning, real quick, cool Morikawa story. So we were out there pretty early yesterday morning and went and followed some of the groups on the back 9 that were like completely out of it. And Morikawa comes through to 17, the short par 4. And the wind was kind of down a little bit in the morning. But anyways, him and his caddy go through the conversation, and he's like, yeah, it's playing like 265, 270 front edge where you want to land it. And they're debating between 3-wood and driver. And he decides to pull driver. And I kid you not, he pulled out a Devin Porter tee plus 2 inches. Like this thing looked like a T-ball stand. I mean, he had it teed up so high.
Is that legal? Is that regulation size?
I don't know, but it was sick. He had the ball teed up where he could have comfortably swung underneath that ball. But anyways, he pulls it out, opens his stance up, opens the face of driver, and hits the highest banana cut that you've ever seen. I was in awe of.
That's so
I
sick.
never would have thought of that. He basically hit the cut flop driver off of a 14-inch tee. It was unbelievable.
That is incredible. And
I'm pretty sure he stuck it on the front edge. So
dude,
executed to perfection.
Like, I'm telling you, that shot that he hit on 16 at TPC Harding Park will like stick with him forever. And that's like his like MO now. That's funny because I'm doing that and I'm still catching it on the face somehow. I don't really know how, but I am. So
that's I mean, I love, and I wish we'd get more of it on TV, just player caddy conversation where they start picking out targets, right? And it sounds insane, right? You're 265 out, and it's like, yeah, that's that little square window, 270 from here. That's what you got to hit. And I think the shot type is a high 40-yard fade with your driver, right? And just put it in that little window, and the player's like, yeah, no problem, and goes out and does it. So that kind of thing is so cool to me. And I mean, being someone that loves golf as much as I do and loves trying to hit different kinds of shots and experimenting with things, just seeing guys go out there and just be able to control that golf ball on command, right? like swinging as hard as they do. I just think it's so cool, and I'm just so in awe.
Yeah, I know that another on the stupid broadcast, dude. I can't remember what hole it was, but JT and Bones were in this deep conversation working through. I wish I would have known what hole it was, but I just remember I was so into the conversation and they cut to a Fitzpatrick like par putt. And it's like, are you kidding me? You idiots. Like, I was so mad. It's like, dude, this is the type of stuff that is just, yeah, I'm the same. I cannot get enough of those conversations. Like, nothing bugs me more than when Faldo's got to tell a story of, back in the 79 Masters or whatever, and he's got to tell his story, and there's a caddy player conversation going on. It's like, dude, you gotta stop. So yeah, because nothing, and that's just fun, man. Even if it's like, listen, I think that's why we love Spieth so much, is because they just give you a lot, and it's just hilarious, especially when they have all the conversations, and a lot of times, amazingly enough, they do pull it off. But when they don't, it's just like, we just they just move on and continue, and it's sick. So yeah, I love that.
Dallas, what was your favorite shot you saw in person this week? I mean, that Morikawa thing was pretty cool, but any other ones?
TSA is giving an announcement.
Yeah,
Don't take any sketchy
enough
bags. If you don't know the person.
Exactly. Yeah, I apologize for the muddy audio, but the coolest shot, I don't know if I can stress enough how good JT was when he played 18 twice on Sunday. Like, rips drives down to the perfect spot of the fairway. Like you said earlier, you've got to be in the right spot of the fairway on that hole to have a good look. And then it's such an intimidating shot up the hill to a firm green that, like, it's so elevated, and the guys were hitting probably mid irons. I don't know, maybe from the broadcast, but probably hitting like 5, 6, and 7 irons in there that are really hard to stop. And for him to hit it like 10 or 12 feet behind the hole on 18 in regulation, and then to just get up there and do it again on repeat in the playoff, like, his birdie on 13 was sweet. His tee shot on 17 in the playoff was sweet. But, like, for him to get up there and just nails on 18 twice was so impressive. That hole is so hard.
I'm glad you mentioned that shot he hit on 13 in the playoff. Him and Tiger, because Tiger did it on his first hole of the tournament on Thursday, where they've got under 100 yards and they take 56, 52, or even a pitching wedge and just dead arm saw off this wedge that just one hops and stops. Watching those two execute those shots is so much fun, and I would absolutely love to see it in person, because it's so hard to do, right? Because the natural instinct is to decel with the arms and you just bounce the club into the ground. But those guys are so good at just hitting that one hop, and it just stops dead, and it's so cool to watch. It's not a big swing at all, and even Tiger's good at, he'll work that like right to left too. Like, I saw him do that on 13 or one of the 5s this week, where pin was on the left and he actually hit like a hooking 100-yard one hop and stop wedge. And just, I mean, that kind of stuff is just so cool, I think, to see.
Yeah, I was curious, and maybe you have more context to this, Dane, or not. I'm not really sure if Tiger hitting a lot of those stingers, especially the first day, just found himself, which was odd, him hitting the stingers off the tee, not hitting the fairway, which isn't like him. Usually that's, pretty much dialed into the fairway. But that was kind of like, that kind of killed him, I think, and took a lot of his energy being far back with the stingers and not being in the fairway. And it was just like seeing Spieth and Rory just bombing driver. Like, is that just like him trying to conserve and not hit driver swings? Was there just trouble there that he just couldn't, like, that he didn't want to hit driver? Like, I don't know. It just was kind of shocking to me of, like, why isn't he taking driver when they are, and he's hitting, hard 5 irons and they're hitting wedges. Like, and I know he's not as deep, but he can get there. So I just didn't know if it was just trying to conserve energy, or if there was just something up there that he just didn't like. So he chose the stinger route a lot of the times off the tee. But
I don't know. It's a good question because like one of the things that's kind of hampered him over the years, right, is he gets a little squirrely off the tee. But Southern Hills, you can kind of drive it like it doesn't require super precise driving, and so it was a little shocking to me to see him hitting driver as little as he did. So yeah, I don't know if it was like a core strategy thing or like you said, try and not take as many massive cuts with the driver and conserve a little bit of energy.
yeah,
I mean, that was a big part of the redesign is they made the landing areas a lot wider, right? So in theory, it should have been friendlier. So I can't remember what the winning score was last time they played, but I think the winning score this year was
-7.
actually, yeah. So it was harder. The course actually played harder this time around. So I thought that's interesting that they made, in theory, the more friendly off the tee, but the course played harder. Which I mean, the golf sicko in me absolutely loves, right? Because I mean, I love sort of the skill needed around kind of approach shots and leaving yourself in the right spots on greens and stuff. So I thought that was pretty cool. And I know freaking Pat and Kazai or whatever completely whining about the bunkers or whatever, but I thought it was cool. I think bunkers every now and then should be a penalty, right? Like you shouldn't be aiming for bunkers to avoid like rough around the greens or whatever. Like I think it should be a penalty. And this week I thought it was a pretty good test, right? Being in the bunkers. You couldn't just throw the wedge under it and just stop it on a dime everywhere. Like you actually had to try to hit a shot.
They get a taste of county golf.
Yeah.
Those are Southie bunkers. You ain't spinning those at all.
Oh, just clear the lip and watch it roll out.
One of the cool things about the bunkers out there is the way that they manicure them and that sand, like the combination of them. You actually see a lot of balls that, besides Kramer Hickok, that his actually did plug, but they'll hit kind of in the slopey part of the bunker, but then they actually funnel back down to like the flat part. So while the sand may not be as good, you generally have a pretty good like stance and lie in there. So it kind of offsets that way.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I saw Cantley, he played terrible, but he had an awful plug. But I think that also just comes with, if they're hitting a wedge and if it's, into the wind, like it doesn't matter what sand you're
in. And
definitely gonna.
And like it's definitely not an all the time case, but I mean, because there's some really steep bunker faces out there that if they're coming into them with any sort of loft, they plug. But like generally, if you roll in there, it kind of comes back down to a level spot. So
that's good. And the green size, like were they pretty? Because that's kind of like the biggest thing. Like as I was because I didn't know anything about Southern Hills, and obviously it was like the greens are kind of like Augusta, and they're kind of similar with all the nuance and topography and stuff. But would you are they comparable to like Augusta size greens, bigger, smaller? Like what was the kind of the sense that you got? Because obviously like Pebble, that was just the first thing that I saw. I was just like, these greens are tiny, like they are so small. So I was just curious, like how that felt.
I wish I was more familiar with Augusta's greens in person to have like a
come on, Dave.
A real true
what are you
comparison.
Doing?
I know. But like I think they are a little bit bigger because the golf course, especially with the redesign, they wanted it to play more like the width and angles, right? So like 18 is kind of the perfect example of that. Like there's a huge landing spot, and there's that little kicker in the fairway that you can roll down. But it's like it gives you a lot of options off the tee, and then they give you a big green. But if the pin is on the far right, like it was Sunday, like you have to be on the left, and so I think cool. I think they probably are a little bit bigger greens. But there's certainly places out there that you've got to be on the right side of the fairway to get to them.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so like I guess your guys' thoughts on Mito. Like I didn't know much about him. The only reason why I know anything about him really is Tron Carter on the No Laying Up podcast is like he's like so deep in the guy, and he's always talking about him. But I don't know, being a guy from Chile playing with Joaquin even has a similar swing as him, which is interesting. But I don't know, like obviously like Faldo was kind of giving him a bunch of grief hitting driver, and was saying, oh, he should have. That's what he was saying, like over and over and over and over again on the podcast. Like I don't even know how many times he said it on the broadcast, but he said it like a bunch. He just reiterating like, oh, that was a rookie mistake. Like definitely doesn't need to hit driver. Do you like concur with that? I just seems like, to me, I don't know if it's just my biased opinion, anything with Nick Faldo, I'm like the exact opposite of. But like obviously it was working for him and other guys were doing it. JT did it, like the driver, like people were hitting driver. It's just, he just kind of double crossed it and put it right in there. But I don't know. Thoughts on him and like his play and then the decision on 18.
Yeah, I think his decision on 18, I liked that he had his mind made up, right? It seemed like on 17 and 18, he knew what club he was going to hit, and he didn't let what was happening around him kind of change or make him second guess himself. So I liked it there. And as I kind of digested more of kind of what happened to the tournament, I had a chance to listen. Max Homa, he popped on with the no laying up guys as they wrapped up the fourth round. And
That's
he was
cool.
talking,
We're not expecting a call from Max Homa, unfortunately.
No, but he got on and he bashed Faldo. He's like, no, that's stupid.
That's my boy.
Like, driver was a good play. Like lots of guys were hitting driver. That was, if you felt comfortable, that was the play you needed to hit to give yourself, like Dane was mentioning, kind of your best look at the green. And unfortunately, he just didn't pull it off, right?
Interesting.
So I mean, I do think it was the right play for him, because I think he'd shown that he could hit the shot. And like, I mean, 17, he hit a great swing on 17, right? He hit it right where he needed to. So there's no reason why he couldn't do it again. And just, I mean, that just shows kind of what makes 18 such a good golf hole, right? It's just, it lays out the challenge for him. You got to hit the shot. And unfortunately he wasn't able to do it. And then, I mean, maybe the one downside is maybe he could have executed that third shot a little better, but at the same time, it is hard to hit that mega cut with the long iron under pressure, right? Because you don't want to flail it way right. So you probably maybe got a little unfortunate where the ball settled where it did, and he really had no shot at getting up and down. So I don't know, everything kind of, it was like a domino effect, right? Where it can kind of compounded one after another. But it's tough to be too hard on a guy that he's a rookie on tour, his first time doing that. But I mean, his interview he gave after was awesome. Like full props to him for talking to the media. And he said like, hey, coming into this week, I just wanted to make the cut. And then at the end, I had a chance to win. So I got to just always remember that. And hopefully he can use some of this experience, and obviously like the status and the money and the points he'll get should give him some opportunities. Like I'm pretty sure it gets him into some majors next year and some big tournaments. So hopefully he'll have opportunities to keep, I mean, trying to grind out, because it seems like he's got the game for it. So
yeah.
I mean, it's easy to second guess his decision off the tee after that happens, right? But where the pin was on 18, guys were hitting driver all day because you had to get as far down there to the left-hand side of the fairway that you could. And then obviously the further up closer to the creek you can get it, the shorter club you're hitting in. So, I mean, even if he does hit 3-wood, like there's a chance that he kind of ends up where he had to drop from, and then he's blocked by the trees. Like, yeah, just because you hit 3-wood doesn't guarantee you a par there. Like 18 is just such a hard hole. And I think that's, like Sean said, that's what makes it great. So, I mean, I think the driver decision was right. Just, needing a par on the 72nd hole of a major, that tests your execution. And like no surprise at all what happened. So, I mean, we were.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, like, obviously we have no way of knowing, but if he, say he lays up, he plays for a bogey, he makes bogey on 18 and gets to the playoff, like I don't think he's beating JT with the way JT played in the playoff. So no. I think he picked the club that was going to give him the best chance of making par, which is what he needed to do to win the tournament. So.
Exactly.
And there's just a good chance like he does pull 3-wood and gets in the playoff, right, and loses, and then everybody could say, well, why didn't you just pull driver? Everybody all day pulled driver, and you could have won this thing without a playoff. So like, yeah. It's easy to Monday morning quarterback, and Faldo seems to be first team all pro at that.
Our boy. Hate to see it.
It was refreshing not to see the coverage.
That was probably the best part of being there on site. You don't have to have him in your ear.
I am curious. Did you guys watch any of the featured groups that had Smiley Kaufman?
No,
I
he
didn't,
was
but I saw
commentating,
he
right?
was doing a
No,
lot of work, right?
no,
Yeah.
Yeah,
not
he was
playing.
like,
So just
no,
What?
that's true. He was inside the ropes, but he had a headset instead of his clubs. But um, from
that would
everything
be
that I've heard,
cool.
he was pretty good.
That would be
He
sick.
seems like a pretty likable guy, and
Yeah.
yeah,
That would be sick. No, I didn't. I hope it's I don't know if it was just like a one-time thing or if he's, trying to make the Colt Nose transition, knowing he can't play anymore to doing that. But that is like, as much as I don't know, Colt Nose has like that personality that, sometimes like he just tries really hard to be funny and sometimes it's like whatever, but the insight that he can give is really good. So I would imagine Smiley could do very similar as a player. So no, I wish I didn't even know that he was commentating, but that would have been cool. But
yeah, he
ESPN
was.
Plus, just top notch on the broadcasting. So, but anyway, I just think it's cool. Like, Mito, Cameron Young, Will Zalatoris, like dudes that were just on the Corn Ferry Tour are up and and competing. That just, again, just shows like the margin and the difference between a Corn Ferry player and a PGA player is very small, and it's cool to see guys like that do well on such a big stage. But anyway, what else, boys? What else? As we were kind of recapping and thinking about it, any obviously the big surprise is, you boys, Sean, you didn't go 4 for 4 on Mr. Scotty Scheffler, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, there were a lot of guys that struggled, and ultimately that's kind of where, to bring Tiger back into it. That's kind of where I settle on him, is the
Wow.
fact that he was able to make the cut. He's made the cut at the PGA and the Masters, and I'm pretty sure, I think the stat is like 8 of the top 18 players in the world have missed one of or both of those cuts. So the fact that Tiger's played and made the
Interesting.
cut both times, like,
Says a lot.
obviously physically he can't hold up for 4 rounds. Like, I think that's obvious at this point. But when he when he doesn't have some of the physical limitations like the game, he still got the swing, and it's fun. Thursday morning, I was every bit as excited Thursday morning to watch that Spieth Tiger Rory group as I was Thursday morning at Augusta.
Yeah.
It was so much fun, and I just completely ate it all up for that 5 hours on Thursday. I thought it was awesome. Thursday was a really fun day for me. Obviously with Rory playing well too, but all in all, I thought it was fun. It was new experience for the course, because I don't remember anything about this course when Tiger won. So it was new. It was a refreshing change. It was fun. I thought it was a lot of fun. Like I said at the beginning, this blew my expectations out of the water. This was as good of a golf tournament as I think we'll see all year. So
Yeah, that's good. And I don't know if it was just like the bits and pieces, because same thing. Thursday watching that feature group was awesome. And seeing just Rory, it's always good to watch him play well, and he was just destroying that golf course, and it was super enjoyable. Just, I think just some of the stuff that I saw on Friday, and then kind of didn't really get much on Saturday. It just was, I don't know. I maybe just didn't get into it as much as you did, Sean. But overall, like, yeah, I just felt like it definitely blew the expectations away of some course in Tulsa. Like, who would have thought that it would test the best players like it did? And yeah, overall it was super, super enjoyable. But Danny, like, what are your kind of like final like thoughts, takeaways, experience from the week, as you kind of reflect back being there in person?
Yeah, it was just really cool to be there in person. Like Sunday, the place was pretty electric. Starting with when Rory started to make his run, like I said, like everybody got behind him, everybody was flocking to where he was on the course, and then like the final hour, right when the tournament actually was like, okay, like this thing is open and we don't know who's going to win. And some of those holes coming down the stretch, like I think that's what makes a good golf course, is having exciting holes coming down the stretch that bring a lot of people into the mix, and I think the course delivered on that. And I mean, like I've said, I'm a little biased. I love Southern Hills. It's pretty sweet. Tulsa's like an underrated city. But yeah, it was just really cool to be out there for a major championship, and especially to get to witness a playoff like that with Willie Z and Justin. And like, I mean, they played such good golf in the playoff that, I mean, either of them could have won, and it was just really cool to be out there for the atmosphere.
That was awesome.
Yeah, have to say I was a little bummed because when you found out you had some extra availability on grounds pass out there, and Devin and I both sort of the mad scramble trying to find a flight from Salt Lake to Tulsa, and there it's
Not a
already
lot to be had.
I think it's pretty limited to begin with, and I had no luck. Could not find a single seat on a plane to get me there in time, and then back not by next Thursday. So
Yeah, so I was there with as a guest of the airport and with some other airline people, and we were all just kind of talking, and I guess flights in Oklahoma City, Stillwater, Tulsa, and Bentonville were all sold out for like the entire week. So it didn't help that there was also a 10,000 person Ironman in Tulsa yesterday too. So like, I mean, that was like Super Bowl Sunday for the city of Tulsa.
Oh man, I can attest to that. There was the Ironman World Championship here like a couple weekends ago, and dude, it shut this place down. It was insane. Locals, we just tried to bunker down and just watch, but that was it. So yeah, I'm sure that was a bump in city and very good for the city of Tulsa, and some nice tax revenue that I'm sure is much needed from the impulse from those two events. So that's good.
I think
like a TSA. You got to hold your thought there, Dane. Go ahead, Sean.
As I say, with Dane's experience going to this major, I think now what I need to do is got to convince you two to come overseas with me, and we got to make the British Open a thing that happens. So that'll be my way to introduce you guys to Europe. We got to get over there. So
as soon as you can sell Sydney on moving to St. George, I think you'll be able to be a good enough salesman to sell me to go across the pond. But we weren't able to go to Tulsa, but we were able to book our flights for our Portland trip, which in July, pumped about. I'm so jazzed. It can't come quick enough. So more to come on that, but super, super excited. So Dane's going to have to, it's his time to shine in his expertise once again, not only on the golf course, but on the, being our concierge. So I'm pumped selfishly. So anything else, boys? I know we were sorry. Go ahead, Dave. I'm not like the TSA chick. I'm trying to just cut you off, but
no worries. Nobody's approached me with a bag asking me to hold on to it yet, so we're good.
It's good.
I do want to say I know the course. I don't know if this is the PGA. I assume that runs that, but they were taking some heat earlier in the week for the alcohol prices out on the course.
Everyone saw that $18 for a cup of beer. Oh, thank you.
But what I don't know was well reported is that food and non-alcoholic drinks were actually included unlimited with the price of your ticket, which was awesome. So I think it balanced out. It was like all you can eat. The food was halfway decent, and they had like soft drinks and water out there. So
and that
want to make sure that
wasn't because they were smoozing you as as an airline guest.
No.
Wow.
We had tickets to a different tent, but like honestly, the general admission concessions I think were better. But yeah, I thought that was a cool touch for the tournament. Everybody seemed to be loving it. I mean, it was super quick in and out. Like the lines were not long because you didn't have to stand there and pay. I mean, you just walked in, grabbed your stuff, and took off. And so I just wanted to make sure that even though they took some heat for the high beer prices, if you average it out, I mean, that's really pretty cheap.
Yeah, it's all those Saturdays are for the boys that were upset and trying to get hammered there. But
there was definitely no shortage of those Michelob Ultras being sold. So
I could hear there was a
group
of dudes on the 18th tee that were just, you could tell they were very well just had some liquids because they were just screaming at air, like gotta hit.
Were those the ones that were trying to? Yeah, I was gonna say they were like trying to caddy for the guys walking off of 17 up to 18. You could hear them yelling to hit driver. Yeah.
See,
Surprised JT didn't have him kicked out.
I was gonna say you better be quiet when he's talking through with balls. He'll escort you right off the property.
say having the pleasure of working at a golf course, I know there is no price tag that's too high for alcohol consumption on a golf course, right? Like if it's the classic, if you build it, they will come. Like it doesn't matter how many zeros you put on the end of that. They're gonna buy it in droves. So maybe that was the business model, right? Use the high alcohol prices to subsidize the food for everyone else. So exactly. It's a good idea. I think that's awesome that they did that.
Yeah, that is cool.
It was a cool touch. I'd never been to a sporting event like that. It was pretty sweet.
Yeah, that's legit. Well, it sounded like it was awesome and extremely jealous, but thanks for coming on, man, and shedding some of that insight. I'm sure we could talk for days, but we were trying to be committed to make this one a little bit shorter. It's just so easy. We look up, it's like, man, we've been going for a while, but anyway, so let's wrapping up. Any other shout outs, anything you hated to see out there, Dane, in old Tulsa, besides the the travel troubles?
No, I mean, the biggest hate to see it is just Rory, and I mean, he goes out and fires 65 on Thursday to post 5 under, and then it turns out 5 under is what it took to get it done. And man, he's so good. And watching him in person, that was my first time watching him in person, which I followed him more than anybody, and
I'm sure
he's so good. And it's just so frustrating to watch him hit some shots that like I hit.
He's a
like,
little dude. Isn't that like blowing your mind how small he is? Like when you see him in real quick, like, whoa, that dude's.
I don't think he's much taller than me.
Not by much. No, I mean he's a little dude.
I will say I saw a couple of guys for the first time in person, and like Zalatoris is so wiry. Like he's not huge either, and he hits the ball so far. Who is the other? Your boy Max Homa. I didn't realize he was so tall and that his golf swing was so pretty, but like in person, I could just watch that all day.
You're telling me, man. I'm over here just salivating. I just replay. I was on loop all day Saturday with that little video of that little bunker shot. Just give me all the Max. No, there's just nothing better than that.
And I know you got a TSA announcement going on, Dane, so I'll try to drag out my question here. But were you able? It's maybe hard with the crowds and the screaming and whatnot, but were you able to get close enough just to hear some contact off some drivers? Does it legitimately sound different when those guys hit it like I think it does?
Actually, I would say no. Like I think that's kind of the surprising thing. And I think this every time I watch the pros, I'm like, their good shots are obviously like very, very good, but they hit a lot of shots that are like, man, like playing amongst our group that we play, like we hit a lot of the same shots, but their bad shots are so much different than our bad shots. Like, the one-handed follow throughs that land 1 yard left of center in the fairway that they're just so upset about. That I think that's the thing that really separates them, and seeing that in person is pretty impressive. They make it look so easy.
Yeah, that's legit. Did you have any experience with any of the players that you like get a fist pump or get say anything? Because that, I'm telling you, that just totally put me over the edge with Max, man. When I saw him in Vegas, he made a birdie on, I think it was 14 there, par 5, got up next to the tee box. I'm like, hey, great birdie, Max. He just looks right at me. Thank you. I was like, oh, Maxie, we're tight now. We were tight. Like that, just, I don't know, those little things like that. I'm just, I guess, a sucker for that. But did you have any experiences like that? Were you able to get, I know you said with the golf course and with the, the spectators, but anything like that?
No, I think with it being a major, some of those guys are just like so locked in that, it's just like blinders on, but yeah. Not like other tournaments I've been to. So
yeah. But I'd biasly say Max will always give you the time of day. He's just that type of guy. But at least you saw him. Sick. Appreciate the vid. But anything else, Sean? Any other shout outs or you hate to say it? Anything?
I mean, I don't want to get too deep into it, but you hate to see Ricky Fowler not shooting down the Saudi Golf League. It seems like he might have a foot in the door there. That's as someone who grew up as a pretty diehard Ricky Fowler fan, that's That one was tough to hear.
That was.
But when your game goes and you're trying to make money, you go join the old folks cashing out the Saudi checks, I guess.
I'm just saying, man, it's like he can just go shoot a couple more commercials per usual and he should make out all right. He doesn't need to go there. But yeah, that was tough. That was shocking to hear that he hadn't rolled it out. But yeah, and I got to give a shout out to Alan Shipnuck's book. Phil, get it. Like, download it on Audible or read it. It is insane. It is the most entertaining book that I've listened to in a long time. Like, I pre-ordered it on that Thursday, like, and that was what I was like pumped to like drive up north because it was just me. So I just locked in on that, and I'm about finished with it. But it is so interesting, and some of the stories, dude, are unreal, and just, I don't know, just a whole new insight into Phil. And so I know I've kind of shouted that out a couple last times, but it's just, he's been top of mind of just how bizarre that whole thing is. And so anyway, get the book. It's worth it. It's a good read. So, and it's just a shame, man. Rory said it best. Like, for Phil not to be there is a shame, because it really should be a celebration, man. Like what he did last year. And it honestly is sad that he wasn't there and not being able to live that up and probably shoot 100 and not make the cut, but to be able to soak that in, I don't know. It's unfortunate, but anyway, is that it, boys? Are we good? Anything else we want to mention or highlight?
Just got to shout out Dallas for sticking it out, making it onto the pod, even though he's
Always
spent the entire day in either an airport or an airplane, and now he's still looking at a several-hour drive back home. So just
all the shout
very
outs,
appreciative,
all the vibes. I hope it reciprocates through just a lot of made putts, which is, I think is safe to say with you, Dane. So we appreciate it, man. We love it.
Yeah, apologies for the TSA in the background, but thanks for having me on, guys. It was a fun week to be out there, so fun to talk about it.
Worth it. Love it, man. Well, if nothing else, we'll wrap it up and some, like we said, some exciting things for next episode. But we'll see you all again next week. Keep striving. Thanks for listening.
Peace.